Okay, you are live.
Good evening, everyone. I'm India Oaks, Chair of the Annapolis Education Commission, and I'm calling our June 2021 meeting to order. Let's do roll call so we can confirm we have a quorum. Ward 1, Brianna Griffin.
Present.
Ward 2, Jeff McCoris.
Present.
Ward 3, Enid Collison-Lee.
Present.
Ward 4, Kayla Golder. Ward 5 is myself, India Oaks, and Ward 6 is vacant, so on to Ward 7, Laura Booth.
Present.
Ward 8, Jessica Packler.
Present.
At-large member, Odessa Ellis.
Present.
At-large member, Grace Matthews. At-large member, Janet Norman.
Present.
At-large member, Ken Starks. An older person, Sheila Finlayson. Okay, looks like we have 8 members present, so we have a quorum. Great, thanks to everyone who is here tonight. The agenda and last month's minutes have been circulated and posted online, but before we move to approving the minutes, I just wanted to propose a slight shift in the agenda. If there is no objection, I am moving our discussion with Board of Education member Dr. Joanna Tobin down right before new business, since she has another commitment and will get here later in the meeting.
I make a motion to approve that move.
Seconded.
Any objection? Did anyone else want to add anything to the agenda for tonight?
I have some things for new business, just the announcement of the new Annapolis High PTA officers.
Okay, we will add that under new business.
And I wanted to talk about some school supplies, which is just a small thing. We can add that in there.
Okay, moving to approval of the minutes. If there is no objection, we will adopt a motion to approve the minutes from our May meeting.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Any objection? Minutes approved. I am not aware of any submitted public testimony, so we will move to committee updates. Any update from the charter school or target program committee?
Odessa, is that you, right? Have you heard anything else? Or gotten any further with that one?
About what? Are you talking to me?
Yeah, about the charter school committee.
Oh, no, I haven't heard anything. Pretty much, I'm just kind of like done. I'm not giving up on it, but I'm not going to worry myself about it either. If it happens, it'll happen.
Okay, thanks, Odessa. Any updates from the Low Performance and Proficiency Levels Committee?
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry if I didn't hear her ask for my report. I apologize. Thank you, Jess, for waking me up.
No problem.
Oh.
Seeing no update, any updates from the Career Pipeline and Vocational Preparation Committee?
I just want to announce that our high school registrar, Ms. Haberstroh, will have the end of year transcripts available. She's getting them out for the seniors first that go to their locations that request them, and then for rising juniors and stuff who want to use those transcripts to apply for scholarships, internships, jobs. A lot of times employers want to see your transcript, what you've taken, how well you did. So that can be readily accessed by email. You can get an unofficial copy of your transcript from the registrar. And if anyone needs help in doing that, myself and Laura and others can help direct them who to email. Ms. Haberstroh, lhaberstroh@aacps.org. Thanks. And we'll continue to post our very good signature program at Annapolis High. Ms. Burr Hogan and others will probably continue to be posting career opportunities, job opportunities, work study, other programs available to our students. So continue looking on the AHS PTSA Facebook page for those opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you. Any updates from the Bilingual Facilitators and Support for English Language Learner Families Committee?
No updates at this time for that committee. I think it's been approximately 7 minutes since our May meeting. I'm not sure exactly what happened between May and June.
Any updates from the Transportation Committee?
That I can update. So I have the results of the survey so far, and I'm compiling them to give to the city and the county and the school system to work on some of the different issues. One of the big ones that was pointed out was that affects a large portion of our kids is the need for a turn signal at Annapolis Middle School on Forest Drive. If you're coming from the peninsula, going up Forest Drive, because there is no turn signal there. And especially this year when people started going back to school, but kids weren't riding the buses, people were driving their kids to school more often. It really became a bottleneck, and I expect that to probably continue. But it's also just in general a safety issue. So I've spoken with Delegate Jones about this, and she and her office are investigating it and trying to figure out what needs to be done and what can be done to make that a safer intersection for everybody. So
The one right at the 7-Eleven, Jess?
yeah, the one at the Crystal shop, but yes. the
Yes.
7-Eleven. Yep.
Okay. At Spa,
Yes, right. Forest and Spa. Yes.
Forest and Spa. Okay.
Just
Great-
because
great
there's
suggestion.
no, because you just really have to wait a long time, and what ends up happening is that people end up shorting by taking a left at the car wash, which
Yeah,
has its own
dangerous.
issues, and that road
So-
is not really meant to be used on a regular basis by so many cars. So
Yeah,
having a turn signal there would solve a bunch of different problems. So
yeah. When I
So
worked with the city, maybe 7 or 8 years ago on the Crystal Spring Farm, I brought up the issue of Annapolis Middle traffic needing to get in and out, for 1,000 students a day.
Right.
And the city's transportation director said, "Oh, that wasn't really on my radar." The planning director said, "Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that. That wasn't on my radar."
Yeah.
And so I think it behooves us to keep putting these things on their radar.
exactly. So that's the goal with this survey too, to put those things on the radar in a spreadsheet format so they can say, look, this is where we are. Also Prismatic, I guess since the last meeting, Prismatic did their report at the Board of Ed, and it's very interesting to see what they're doing and how they're moving forward in terms of start times and some of the other initiatives. There was not a lot of discussion on one of the initiatives that we've spoken a lot about in this commission, which is the busing radius. So that is the thing that I really plan to work on this summer, because it really is a big issue. And there was actually just a great article. There was an article about transportation in Baltimore, in the city of Baltimore, which they don't rely on school transportation at all. Everything is on public transportation, and how not offering transportation and adequate transportation to to the most at-risk families and those who lack any form of transportation alternatives can really have such an incredible negative effect on their educational progress and on the achievement gap and the opportunity gap and after school activities and everything else. So, I think that's an issue we just really need to keep pushing in the city. I know it may not be something that's as important in the rest of the county, but within the city, I think it's a really, really important issue that really affects our students.
Mhm. Yeah, I totally agree. And I hope we continue to work through our lawmakers and get their attention to push it hard.
And I also want to say I testified at that meeting, and I one of the things that sort of concerned me with the whole Prismatic report is that they're really pushing the idea that we can change school start times, which is the next report, for this cost, we can keep the cost of transportation the same and change the school start times. But the way that they're keeping the costs the same is by, keeping long walking radiuses, by keeping consolidated bus stops, by keeping some of the things that are really harming our populations in place. And I'm a little bit concerned that if this, they've given them the go ahead to continue this work for next year. Although we're not entirely certain if they're going to get it together in time for second semester or not. But I think it was really clear that we need to continue to push for our cluster's needs, specifically the shorter walking radiuses and the fact that none of our magnet programs are accessible to students who don't have private transportation to a consolidated bus stop. I mean, that right away cuts out a large portion of our students from being able to participate in these programs, which is not equitable. So I think we need to continue making noise to the county about that, because it doesn't sound like Prismatic is coming in with the idea of making transportation better, just fixing school start times. So we need to keep that on their radar.
Yes, I agree. And Laura, we can also continue to talk about that and how on the transportation committee, we maybe can come up with some ways to figure out the best way to approach it from the education commission side.
Anything else on transportation before we move to any updates from the School Start Times Committee?
If anyone has any concerns that have come up in the last few months, that you want to make sure that we address, please let me know. That would be great.
School start times. I spoke at the meeting, and they did hear the Prismatic report, which basically said what we thought it was going to say. They agreed with their own report from a year ago or a year and a half ago now that said that school start times could be changed. So they got approval to go ahead and start trying to figure out what the specifics of that will look like. They sort of came up with a preliminary, we think we can do it with this, maintaining the same number of buses by moving the school start times around. They would start elementary schools first, high schools second, and middle schools third. So we would go from 4 tiers down to 3, and tighten up the times a little bit. They don't have specific times for specific schools yet because they're still sort of working out the kinks in that system. There was some pushback from some of the newer members of the board that were not as familiar with the many years of discussion on the subject of changing school start times. So I do think it would behoove us to continue to sort of make some of the members who have younger children aware of exactly the impacts that it has on the high school students. But so far we are tentatively moving forward. There was discussion, the Prismatic report, where the spokeswoman from Prismatic was very reluctant or rather hesitant about the idea of implementing the changes mid-year. She said that's a big change. And so I am a little concerned that they had set the goal of saying we're going to get this in by the second semester of next year, that may slip to the following year. So again, that's something, when that comes up again, it might be good. They're having a report. They're coming back, I think, at the August meeting. I think it's the first August meeting, to give a report on when, on what the actual implementation is going to look like. And I think I'm going to attempt to be present to speak at that, and anyone else who can as well, so that we can say, look, this is important. We need to go ahead and we need to get it through as soon as possible for the benefit of our students.
I just know.
Odessa, you have something to say.
Yeah, I remember in a meeting, I guess maybe about a few months back, where Dr. Tobin said that that they were going to start school start time. So I was just waiting for this conversation to come up. So, I mean, is that a firm decision about the school's latest start time starting up this fall, or was it second semester?
Not in September. The soonest that they said they could get it together, when they talked about it this past spring, would be semester 2 of next year. So starting in like January, when the second half of the year begins. But there is talk now that may be. Prismatic was not enthusiastic about doing a mid-year shift. They said that's really difficult on families to transition. So they were really. There was some pushback from the board about doing that. So it may be that they push it to the following fall. So it may be a full year before the school start times go back or are adjusted to a new later starting high school time, and earlier starting for some of our later elementary schools.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Janet?
I would just like to, am I on? Yeah. I would just like to note that the school system changed from an 8:30 a.m. high school start to a 7:30 a.m. high school start in the middle of the year with, several weeks notice this year. So it's not like it is entirely unprecedented and it cannot be done if there is the will to do it. So hopefully people in the room who know the benefits can perhaps encourage them to have the will to do it. Thanks.
Jess?
I just wanted to also point out, if you didn't get a chance to watch the report, I highly recommend going back and watching it, just to see, so you can see what the newer members of the Board of Ed did. Sorry for the noise in the background. What the newer members of Board of Ed did have to say about it. A lot of them wanted to basically bring this all the way back to the beginning and start the conversation from the very beginning and go back out and resurvey the entire community, even though the previous Board of Ed had already voted, or maybe this Board of Ed, I can't remember, sorry, but had already voted on the initiative to get it changed by next year and everything else. So, I think that that's also something, as this has been something that we have been supporting for, I'm pretty sure, as long as I've been on the commission, which is a few years now. But there was a lot of, well, I'm not really sure, and maybe we just need to start all over again. And I don't think that behooves anyone in our community or the school system at large to start all over again. And if the Board of Ed members need to go back and revisit where the other Board of Eds were on this and what discussions were had, then I think that that's important. But I just think everyone should be aware of that and keep your eye on what's going on and how this is moving forward.
I think this has been going on for at least 15 years.
More than that, 20.
Longer than that.
Yeah, I mean, I remember this when my kids were in middle school and they graduated. They're in their 30s now.
Yep.
My
20,
gosh.
25 years.
You said how many years?
Over 25 years, Tara Snyder met with Arlotto and others,
I
Maxwell.
remember Tara
Wait.
Snyder. No, yeah. I mean, this has been going on for a long time.
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
well,
in the 90s.
I think there was a
I
large
also will add
collective.
to what just said. The board voted to have the change no later than second semester, so they would need a new vote to delay anything else on this topic.
it takes 25 years for someone to make a decision. My gosh.
I think there was definitely a large collective off computer moan in the county when that discussion started.
And you didn't have the support 25 years ago or the evidence.
The science.
So, yeah, the science behind it. So a lot of people just thought it was preferences of parents. But now with the data and the proof science behind it, I think it's more realistic to say that they actually have been thinking about it maybe the last 4 years.
I kind of like disagree with that. There was a lot of support. I mean, there were meetings on top of meetings, and they blamed it on the transportation piece. And didn't they order a new transportation thing, something to study, a transportation study? That was by at least 10, 15 years ago. And they blame it on the man who was in charge of transportation. I can't think of his name now.
Well, we had him at one of our meetings. How long ago was that, Janet? About 4 years ago, 3 years ago?
Les Douglas, the transportation head.
Yes.
How old was your son that attended that meeting?
I think he was in first grade and he's going to center. So, yeah.
Well, there used to be another person in charge of transportation. I just can't think of his name, but they blamed it all on him, and he's been retired.
Yeah.
Right. You're right. So there was constantly shifting.
Right, yeah. Because I used to go to those meetings with Tara Snyder and her husband, and I forget who else was in there. They are all long gone.
Thank you for your service in that regard, Odessa.
Thank you. Oh, gosh.
Even though, like I testified a few years ago, there was a study literally 100 years ago saying high school start times needed to match Europe and be at 9 o'clock.
Exactly. You're right.
Anything else on this?
Laura, could you look up the date of that August Board of Ed meeting so that we could possibly put it in the minutes? So that people know when the next opportunity is for the start time advocacy. We can keep moving and we'll just include that in at the end or so.
Okay, I am not aware of any unfinished business, and Dr. Tobin is not here yet, so let's move to new business. A vote had been made several months ago just on the remaining meeting times for the 2020-2021 school year. So we need to discuss meeting plans for the 2021-2022 school year, which involves both the day and time of the meetings and the format. So if we can move first to the timing of the meetings, I am opening the floor up to see if we want to keep meeting on the fourth Wednesday of the month at 6 o'clock, or do people want to propose a different day or time? Enid.
I'm sorry, I couldn't get my hand raised enough for unfinished business. I had talked earlier about Pam Brukowski. She is a member of this commission. And time, Jeff, I think that you and I have done this several times. And I don't understand why she's still not getting. So what I want to know is, what do we have to do to get her included on the invitation list? Jeff, I know you've done it several times, and I know I've done it. Hillary?
Yeah, I can put her back on the spreadsheet. She is, I believe her status is volunteer member, not at-large member now.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not sure how she fell off the spreadsheet, but she did. And that's the TV studio uses that spreadsheet. So I will put her email address back on there as an invited guest, and we'll make sure that she's invited next time.
I would appreciate it. And now my hand is up for the new topic of the meetings. I really feel that the city has given us a liaison. When we change this meeting, I don't know, because of the Zoom situation, Sheila is not able to attend the meetings because she has another meeting at this time. And I think we had to get the last Wednesday of the month, Hillary, I think, because of all the Zoom meetings. Now, I understand that some commissions are going to face-to-face. But I think it is important, because we do have a city liaison, and she may have information that we can't get otherwise, that we try to find a date. I guess we have to vote if we're going to continue to be Zoom. And if so, maybe Hillary can help us find some kind of way that Sheila can be a part of our meetings.
Yes, I can work on that. If that's your intention to stay on Zoom, then yeah.
Has Alderwoman Finlayson provided any alternate dates that work with her schedule? Dates or times?
I can reach out.
No, I did not ask her because I did not know what the committee was going to do, if the committee was going to continue in Zoom or resume in person. I guess that's what we need to, is that what we need to do first?
Yes. Oh. Sorry, yes. So as of September, all boards and commissions are invited to either continue on Zoom or come back into city buildings. The city buildings will be available again. So the scheduling will depend on which category you are, because if you're a Zoom meeting, we need to schedule you around the TV studio schedule. And if you're an in-person meeting, then we need to get you on the physical room schedule, unless you're going to return to your old system of meeting in the schools. I can't speak for the schools. I don't know if they'll welcome the public back into the schools just yet.
I was just going to add to that point that when we were looking at kind of the matrix of calendar dates that were available, one of the barriers was that there were conflicting online meetings, and we were only allowed to conflict with like one other commission on the same night because of the competing airtime. So if we
Yes.
were to move in person or back to the school building, then I think that would open up a lot more possibilities that we were kind of backed into this fourth Wednesday.
I remember that.
And we
Yes,
keep virtual and in person at the same time.
That
That's
is,
what I was gonna ask also.
that is a challenge. We did try to do one of the boards that way. They had half the people in the room and half of them on Zoom. It didn't work out very well. We might be able, if we improve technology in the rooms, in the meeting rooms, we might be able to do that. But using the technology we currently have, it's hard to hear people. There's echoes, and there's an issue with being able to see the people who are in the room, unless we get the special there are cameras that are designed to look at a whole room, but just with a regular, like the desk camera I have now, if we put this laptop in the boardroom, you would only see a few people. You wouldn't see everybody. So it's a bit of a challenge. It's one that we can try to take on if that is the direction that people want to go in. But I would say generally, we would want the meetings to be either primarily in person, the individual meetings. Now, if you're saying, can we have some meetings online and some in the room, that is feasible. We just need to make sure they're scheduled out so that we can staff them appropriately.
I mean, I feel, just having talked to some of the other PTA leaders and some other parents and, the people that we're representing, that having the Zoom meetings, more importantly, having videoed meetings so that they can make dinner for their kids and also watching our meetings, because that is the group of people that we're representing. And evening times are difficult, especially as people get back to going back to work and that type of thing. And that's always been a difficulty with participation. And so anything that we can do to increase participation from the public, I think we should try to do. And so I would be for everyone hates the word, but a hybrid environment going forward, so that, the public can participate as much as possible, and we're not, forcing them to find a babysitter at dinner time and, everything else.
So one more, so what some of the boards have talked about doing is continuing on Zoom, because it has been so great for quorums. It's a lot easier to make a quorum because people can be on vacation and Zoom in, or they can, can't get a babysitter, but they can Zoom in. And then having occasional or topic specific meetings that are in the building to take public testimony. So that's definitely an option. I think probably the preferred option for most of the advisory boards will be that combination of Zoom administrative meetings and in-person public hearings.
Is there a reason we can't at this point do public testimony during our Zoom meetings and add them in?
We can, for special circumstances. It takes quite a bit of staff time because of security issues. So we, when we do that, and we are doing it for some boards, hold on, sorry, I'm staffing the meeting. I'm doing the tech at the same time. Ms. Tobin is here. So in order to have public testimony, we need to vet the people who are coming on. So they need to fill out a form and say they would like to speak. And then we send them the information by email for them to participate. And they have to have matching email addresses. And if there's a lot of people speaking, then we need an additional tech on the meeting to manage moving them in and out of the meeting. But if it's just a few people, you can always email me ahead of time, or actually email Mark and say, like, we'd like these 3 individuals want to come speak before the board. That's not a big deal at all. We can do that. And we just put them in as guests, the same way we put in Miss Tobin.
Enid, you had your hand raised.
Yes, Hillary kind of answered one of my questions, and I was asking her what were most of the commissions doing, and you're saying that they're pretty much continuing on Zoom, but then they're having occasional meetings in person.
Most of the advisory boards are doing that. I think our quasi judicial boards will go back to in-person full-time, or most of them will, because they have a legal need to take testimony at every meeting.
Okay, and I agree. I think that I kind of like Zoom because everybody can come, like you said, we've been pretty good at having a quorum. But at the same time, I know there are some issues that come up where we would like other people to come in and give a testimony, whatever. We can always plan that in advance. I don't know what the schools are going to do. I don't know what the protocols are going to be as far as COVID related precautions. So I don't know if we'll be able to get to schools as readily as possible. And we will probably have to go to City Hall all the time. Is the parking garage all done? I haven't been down there in that.
The parking garage hasn't started yet. So, but it will be available through the end of this year. But we can also try to get you a room at Pip Moyer Rec Center. Sometimes that's a better option because we've got parking there and for in-person meetings sometimes, and the availability is a lot better for that room. And they're bigger rooms if you have guests.
Janet.
I just like to add that I really would like the ability to have people be able to address us at each and every meeting. We are less effective as a group if we do not get the input of our constituents on some, issues that matter to them. We can sit in this room and talk to ourselves and not learn from others. So I would like to have the ability of the new high school PTA president to come and talk to us, anything that's pressing, and they have the opportunity to drop in and talk with us. I think we need to make that available to any of our members who want to address us as their representatives.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, and vetted guests like that is no problem. We can do that now. That's not an issue. It's the issue is drop-ins that we're not expecting. So we can add people to your monthly guest list, and they'll have the invitation and they can join if they like. That's easy.
Right, but I'd also like to be able to advertise it like on the PTSA Facebook page and say, here's our agenda. When we advertise it 4 or 5 days in advance, here's our agenda. If you'd like to speak on any of these agenda items, please register by X time.
Right. And we can do that. It's just a matter of,
Can we just add that? Is there like I know we're doing the boilerplate, the standard agendas. Can we add something like that at the bottom of every agenda so that when the agenda is distributed, it also has information on how to sign up if you have something?
So the agenda will have the link to the public comment form. And if your board would like people to be able to appear before the committee, then we would add the checkbox to your form that says, I want to appear before the committee.
Perfect.
They still need to sign up in advance. The one thing we cannot do is drop in. They have to be signed up in advance.
But at least if we can promote that and give them a mechanism for signing up and make it standard. So if they're getting our agenda, they're also getting that information. I think.
And that does currently go out. So the form goes out now, and I have not received comments for your board, but we do push out the link to the form with every agenda.
Great. Thank you.
So I see 3 things to vote in tonight with a lot to work out. So why don't we vote to do Zoom at the next meeting and keep it the 4th Wednesday for that meeting while we work out how to get Alderperson Finlayson and open that next meeting to the public too.
Sounds good.
We have to somebody make a motion. We have to make-
Yes, do we need to make a motion?
That our next meeting will be Zoom, and that we continue it at the 4th, on the 4th Wednesday, and that in between that time that we find out an available date for Mrs. Finlayson.
Okay. Second.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Hillary, were you giving a second on that? Is that what?
No, no, I'm sorry. I had something else. I'll do it when you're done with your motion.
I think it was seconded, so you can add something if it's relevant to the motion. Okay.
And open to the public.
Do you need me to add that or?
Yeah.
Law? And that the meetings be open, are open to the public to speak beforehand.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any objection? Okay, motion passes.
I had an additional question on this topic to the board is many boards do not meet in August. And I don't know if yours traditionally does or not, but I need to know whether you plan to meet in August. So I can.
We don't traditionally meet in August.
Or July, do we? Do we meet in July?
No.
Not that we don't have to, I was just throwing that out there.
So that would make your next meeting, the one that you just voted on, is for September.
I would wonder and ask if we need to do an end of August meeting, just because our meeting is at the very, very end of the month. So September, at the very end of September, so much has already gone on for the first weeks of school and such. I wondered if it would be better to try and kick off.
Yeah, I feel like, I think we didn't do a July one last year, but we did do an August one, sort of like a planning one, didn't we? I think, I agree. I think waiting until the end of September, because that's like after back to school and
Yeah.
a billion things have happened by then. So,
Especially because there'll probably be a whole lot of new policies regarding, unvaccinated elementary school students and what all that's going to look like. So I think that would be a good thing for us to talk about.
maybe no July, but yes, August.
Would you like me to make a motion to have, do you need a motion to have or can we just agree on that?
Any objection to August?
I will put you on the calendar.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just got a message from Sheila because I did text her before the meeting. And she said the third Wednesday would be good for her.
Those are school board meetings. So I think we want to avoid the first and the third because those are Board of Education meetings.
The evening, okay.
And we love having Joanna come to speak with us.
Right.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but just to say that it's a fluke because of how September works. But as of now, we actually are scheduled for a meeting on the fourth Wednesday of September. It's a weird schedule that we have for September. So I might not be able to make the September meeting, but normally I should be able to make it. So
you're saying that with the exception of September, your meetings will still be the 4th?
the first and the third Wednesday is usually our slot. And we are adding some more slots this coming year for workshops because that's been something. And so that may shift things around a little bit. And those are open to the public also, obviously. So, but if you, I have most of it in my calendar, but it's all on the public calendar. We voted on that. So all the information should be there for next year.
I was trying to find that and I could not.
Really? I thought I saw it the other day. Okay.
They are day are the September what days are the September meetings? And are the workshops always on Wednesday?
The workshops, I think, are often on Wednesdays, though not necessarily all. What I have right now for September is a noon meeting on Wednesday, the 1st, and a 6 p.m. meeting on the 22nd. And the reason for that is Yom Kippur falls on a Wednesday. So the third Wednesday would be Yom Kippur. So that's why it's shifted specifically in September. But it would also be a reason for you guys not to meet on the third Wednesday of that month as well. So that's why September is just a little different.
Maybe part of our August meeting will also be to determine what our schedule for the coming year will be.
Right. And for example, on Thursday, the 9th of September is our capital budget workshop, which is something often people who follow the school system closely want to be able to listen in on and so on. So they don't always fall on, the workshops don't always fall on a Wednesday, but you know, they're dotted around there. So, so anyway, just wanted to let you know.
Okay, I think we are good on the meetings for now, so we can table new business a moment and move back to our monthly updates and discussion with Dr. Joanna Tobin from the Board of Education. Dr. Tobin, the floor is yours.
Ms. Oaks, thank you very much. It's great to see you here cheering, so congratulations, and thank you as always for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to be here. You may hear a lot of noise in the background because there's a group of 2020 graduates of Annapolis High who are finally having their opportunity to have their after high school party tonight in our house. So this is the first time they're all vaccinated, they're all back from college, they all have a chance to get together. So you may hear some squealing and screaming in the background. So that's not normally what my family does on any given Wednesday night. So, so a couple of things. First of all, to the question about the schedule, if you go to the AACPS.org/board page, it's down in the mid to the bottom of that page. The meeting calendar is there, so it should be available at this point. So a couple of things. First of all, I think a release went out today that on Thursday the 1st, our new student member of the board is being sworn in, Bumi Omasare, which is very exciting. Of course, we're sad to see Mr. Smith do what he should be doing, which is heading off to his next chapter. But I think it's very exciting to have Ms. Omasare coming on to the board. And that people will be able to attend that in person. So we are slowly getting back to a little more possibility for that. And we're talking, as those of you who saw the last meeting, we did have both virtual and in-person testimony. So we've been able to work out that. So that's a good thing, because as with all of you on this board, I think we found that there's tremendous value and tremendous potential for equitable access to be able to have virtual testimony, as well as it was a little weird because of the Zoom setup, and the president had to like go in another room and be on another computer, but we worked it out. So for the mechanics, we should be good on that. Our meetings are less in July and August. We have only one meeting scheduled in July and one in August, unless of course there's some reason to have another meeting, but we all hope this is a somewhat less tumultuous summer than last. So I wanted to update. So Ms. Packler very kindly brought to our attention making sure that we were set up appropriately to provide meals over the summer at Eastport Elementary. And the list of sites, I'm sorry, Ms. Packler, did you get the email that I had sent with the list of sites?
Yes, I found it. Yep, I
Good,
found it.
good. Okay, so you got it. I'm gonna pull up, check another screen here, so make sure I've got my information right. So I have some updates.
Do you want me to share the list that you sent me?
Sure, that'd be fine. That'd be fine. Because I've got some other updates just to let you know about, because we've had some updates on some possibilities. So what is going on right now is that we will have, as was already announced, a Maryland Food Bank site at the Eastport Community Center. But in addition to that, we now have 3 additional mobile sites. There will be a mobile, because, you know, obviously these are the trucks that deliver. One is going to be at Madison Street, at President Street, short distance from the community center. There will be one adjacent to the rear of the Eastport Fire Station, and one in the parking lot of Blackwall Hitch, the restaurant on that corner. And I'm looking here at, I think that, yes, okay, so it appears as of now, the route will run from Blackwall Hitch, which will be at 11:45, to Madison President at about 12:15, to the fire station at 12:45, spending 15 minutes at each site. So those have been added. One of the reasons, or the reason, the reason that so you're seeing the sites here. So we have the AACPS community sites, we have the AACPS mobile route, and then we have the Maryland Food Bank sites. We are a little bit limited on our AACPS food service staff this summer because they've had no break for 15 months. And so there are a lot of folks who need to take a break, quite frankly, because they've been working, you know, we've served about 10 million meals since the pandemic. So it's been, for our food service folks, a really difficult time. And the number of meals that have been served at Eastport Elementary particularly have been small. So for example, this week, curbside, we had 8 meals on Monday, 3 on Tuesday, and 4 on Wednesday. So the numbers have been very low. And so to allocate 3 AACPS staff to be at Eastport to service that is hard to do this summer in this environment. So we've worked out these mobile routes as an alternative because we know, the community center, as Ms. Packler has rightly pointed out, is far for a lot of Eastport Elementary families, but there are also issues of comfort going into the center and so forth. And so that's kind of where we are right now. So I just wanted to update you on that, and obviously take any questions or concerns about that anybody else wants to offer. And to say, sorry, go ahead.
Question, what is Box of Rain? That's new to me.
Yeah. Where is it?
That was going to be my question also.
Yes, actually, I meant to ask that question when I saw it and I didn't get around to it.
Okay.
But I could double check.
And the other question is for the mobile meals.
Mhm.
So is the white vans that come around, so they would go there for a period of time and then leave and go and be able to go to another site.
Yes. So, and that's generally how most of the mobile stuff works, that the time, you know, everyone is alerted to the times, and it's about a 15-minute stop, right? So you have a 15-minute window, more or less. And I should add that ACPS is happy to do any of the messaging that needs to be done to get the word out to EES families, anyone else in the community, of exactly what all the options are, where they will be, what time they will be, and how to get,
Right. So just to confirm, when you're talking about the mobile van, you're not talking about ACPS mobile
No.
meals. This is a different mobile meals.
This is Maryland Food Bank. Ms. Reese, who runs our food services from ACPS, has been working with, I believe, Ms. Salters from the Maryland Food Bank, and together they have worked out this route and worked out this this structure. And the city has worked with us basically also to get things like Blackwall Hitch and the fire department and so forth, all of whom actually were very happy to step up and do it. So it's actually been quite a nice partnership. And it is my intention, as Ms. Packler and I spoke about this yesterday, and we've been communicating about it. So I've been a little bit on a learning curve as a new board member. And so I'm learning the ropes here, but I think it's pretty clear that we need to continue to work to make sure that the communication and the partnership between the city, the county, and ACPS is as smooth as possible, so that we know coming into our next season, whatever that is, what the needs are, and that we already have those partnerships laid out. Because unfortunately, I think we all know this, one of the problems that the Annapolis cluster faces often is that we get caught between all these various jurisdictions, and sometimes the coordination is not as smooth as one would hope. And so it's my hope that having established some of these things a little better now, we can keep working to get them up. And as I said, we're in a little bit of an unusual situation now as well, in that we literally have food staff who haven't had a break for 15 months. And so we need to let people take the break that they need, quite frankly, because there's probably nobody other than everybody's worked incredibly hard in AACPS. But I would suggest that the food service staff and the custodians, if you really look at what's happened all through this pandemic, there are no two groups of people who have worked any harder, and there was no let up there for months and months and months. So this has put us in a bit of a crunch this summer, but I think it's necessary. Also, I know there's concern at times, and I want to be clear about something. ACPS does not get paid for food distribution until after the food is distributed, right? It's a back end thing. So it's not that the money that is coming in for this has been given to us and we're kind of sitting on it. We get the money as we are able to distribute the meals. So this, we are using all our resources that we've got right now and deploying them where we can, but working with the food bank, the city, and others to broaden that footprint as best we can. So that's kind of the big picture of what's going on with that. Oh, I know. The one other thing I want to mention. So there will be, because of the holiday weekend, there will be a few days gap. So from the 1st, which is a Thursday, because things shut down that Thursday, between the Thursday, the 1st, and I think I'm looking at my calendar here, oops, wrong month. So the 1st through that holiday weekend. So the food delivery will start up again on Tuesday, the 6th. So there will be a gap there between June 30th and July 6th because of the holiday break.
For all programs.
yeah.
At the schools and elsewhere. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was fine. I was just gonna, there's other people I think that have their hand raised as well. I just have something to say when you're finished, so go on.
Okay. And also one last thing, found out Box of Rain is a community partner. And I'm not sure exactly the location, but they pick up the meals from us and take them to their site. So we'll see
They
if we can get
previously
that
picked up
addressed.
at Eastport Elementary. That's why I was wondering, because that was
Yeah.
what, last year during the summer, that's what they did. They picked up at
Okay.
Eastport and then
Okay.
took them.
Yeah. So I believe they're picking up from somewhere else this year. And we have a couple of similar things, I think, pickups at Pitt Moyer this year and so on. So
I would just like to request that this information be sent out seamlessly, that there not be in the information that's sent out a differentiation between what is Maryland Food Bank and what is,
Right.
Because that's going to confuse our communities more and,
Right.
and make more, and this just whatever is sent out to one community needs to be sent out to everything, and it needs to include all of the sites and all of the times and everything, so that
Yep.
families know. And also, if there are different, like I know for right now, I can go to Eastport without my children and pick up food without my children because I'm registered at Eastport. Do I need to
Right.
re-register if I'm going to go to Bates, or if I'm going to pick up at, the fire station or at my corner, which is great. I like the corner. I'm really excited about that. But what
so
do
that's probably a pretty good location for you.
But what do parents need to know in
Right.
terms of, do children need to be there? Do they need to re-register? How do we get on
Right.
that list? All of that information needs to come out, because right now, everyone that I've talked to still thinks that they're just going to follow, next week
The
and the week
same.
after.
Yeah.
The same that we've done.
Right.
So,
No, yeah. And I think it's understood that needs to be seamless. It needs to be clear. It needs to go to everyone. And hopefully, particularly in the Eastport community, there's now a variety of options. So people can choose, and they'll know the times, and they'll know, what's available and when. But yes, absolutely, duly noted. I think that's a critical piece of this. So.
Yeah, the message that went out this week, they said something like, summer is here, all the mule sites will stay the same through June 30th. And so if you were just looking at that, you wouldn't expect to have to go someplace differently. So we need to make sure that that's being, the new locations and things are being distributed to all the channels, because I thought that jumped out at me as being, wait a minute, that's not very, user friendly.
Yeah. Right. No, I mean, and that's part of my hope. And I've had conversations with other people that going forward, we see this coming. We sit down together, we have these conversations, and we map it out. So there's not a surprise or a scramble to sort that out, because that's basically what's needed, right? It's just that the information is there. We know what's coming, and families know what's coming, and they can plan accordingly. So, that's.
And that there be coordination with Mitchell Stevenson so that she can put it out through the city, right? Because these meals are not only for ACPS students,
Right.
they're for everyone,
Right.
Including ages 2 through
Yes,
not
exactly.
not yet in ACPS. So I
Right.
think, if we make sure, so Hillary, if you can let her know as well to be in touch with Bob Mosier, but I think that's really important. It really does
Yeah.
have to come out to the city as well as the school system.
No, I think that's very much a part of it. And it was frankly my hope that having somebody specifically elected into the Annapolis area representation on the board would help with this, because the Annapolis area is in a very unusual situation compared to the rest of the county because of the city and all the stuff that gets complicated in that relationship. So as I'm on my learning curve, that is one of those things that I see as a really critical part of my job, quite frankly, is to kind of make sure that communication happens. So,
Well, I want to thank
and
you
it has
because
before,
that-
but
That has been a huge asset to all things getting more problems resolved for our cluster.
yeah, oh yeah.
we had exactly the same situation last year and it never got resolved. So
Yeah.
now it's getting resolved, which is great. So perfect example. So
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, you know, it's I make decisions for the entire county, obviously, and I take that very seriously, but I am very proud to represent this district. And I think, you know, there's just some amazing, cool stuff. And just to say, if you haven't had a chance to watch the A-High graduation and watch the student speaker and just those amazing kids who crossed that stage that night, do yourselves a favor. With whatever crazy news is going on in the world, sit down and enjoy yourself to watch this. And congratulations, obviously, to a couple of our families here. But, you know, Annapolis High is just a gem. And Mr. Gelinas, the principal, gave about half his speech in Spanish that night. And it was an awesome ceremony, and clearly under, you know, some sort of special forces, because the rain stopped just in time to have a very lovely, and believe me, folks, you were lucky. I'd sat through some day ceremonies out there. Trust me. You got the best weather.
We realized that. It was a beautiful night and ACPS pulled off magic to make that happen. And
So,
Yeah, our thanks to everyone at the Board of Ed who pulled it off, because, you know, about a couple of months ago, we didn't even think we were going to get a graduation. And then to get an evening like that was just a gift.
Well, I mean, the board did very little of anything. I mean, I got to tell you, the staff did an extraordinary job, and people, there were people who were there at 5:50 every morning and left if they were lucky at 11 o'clock at night. Every day there was a graduation. And, you know, everything from, I had a problem with part of my, you know, ACPS email, and I was on the phone to one of the folks at the help desk, and he was like on cloud nine because he had helped with the parking the day before. And he was like, it was the best, like all these people were coming through and I got to be with people on the staff I'd never met and blah, blah, blah. I mean, everybody came out to do this. And so I just have to say, it was it's, you know, worthy of some military logistics, what they pulled off there, because just the parking alone, I mean, they literally had to figure out where all the Crofton High School people were going to park. The staff were going to park every day and shuttle them back and forth while the graduations were going on. And I think it's kind of a miracle that we pulled off that many graduations, and only 2 in the entire week were postponed due to weather, which was, given the weather we were looking at in the forecast at the beginning of the week, was kind of extraordinary. So the staff just did an unbelievable job. And you didn't see then the other graduations. I mean, I spoke at Evening High, I spoke at Marley Glen, I spoke at the Phoenix graduation, there was Central Special. I mean, there were all those going on in addition to the big graduations going on up at Crofton. So it was a pretty extraordinary
So can you tell me why it wasn't at the casino like they had planned it?
It was all because of the distancing. It was all because there was no way we could even fit basically the graduates into the space there, let alone guests, because of the spacing we were going to have to do, because it was indoors.
But see, I thought that's the reason why that the casino was chosen to be the graduation.
No, if we didn't have COVID, and we're not supposed to say we're graduating in a casino, Maryland Live. if you don't have COVID issues, it's fabulous. But because of COVID, we would have to reduce the numbers to such an extent that it just, I mean, it was hard enough to ask families initially only to have 2 guests, then only to have 4, to say there could be basically none, would kind of defeat the purpose for most families at some point. So, so that's why this year, God willing, and nothing else crazy happens, we should be in Maryland Live next year. And so no more outdoors, no more, you know, lightning strikes, no more all the other things.
So how many were in the class? I think it
So
was-
Annapolis
like
High was
400?
like 460, 480, something like that, I think.
And then-
420, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I
It
thought it was a
ranged.
nice- I thought it was very nice too, but I was disappointed that we only had maybe about 25 Black males to graduate. So the numbers are just shrinking, shrinking.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we keep talking about the achievement gap and now we call it the opportunity gap, but no one seems to be coming up with any kind of answers or statistics or anything about, because 25 or 30 males out of 400, maybe 25 or 50 students, African-American males, that's kind of pathetic to me. But, that's just my opinion.
Well, I think I mentioned earlier in one of your earlier meetings that there is a report that has come down from the state board, which I think I sent the link to somebody on the board, but I can send it again, specifically about Black boys and all of the sort of the recommendations that they've developed specifically around those issues. So Ms. Ellis, I can maybe send it to Ms. Oakes and, if she would like to distribute it, because I think there's a lot of work went into it. I've already had one meeting with some of the staff about sort of where we are with regard to these recommendations and what it's going to look like moving forward. And certainly in some areas we're doing the work, but there's definitely a lot of work to be done. And it's everything from things we've all talked about, a more diverse teaching force, all of those things, to teaching phonics, quite frankly. I mean, there's a whole slew of recommendations. Some of them are social and emotional, some of them are academic, and it's based on research from around the country and, what needs to happen. So yeah, it's a huge issue, and it's not going away unless we actually do something. So.
Well, Odessa, do you
Please
know how
resend
many?
it.
Do you know how many? You're saying that 40 is a low number out of 400 and some. Do you know how many
I know.
African-American males were in the senior class? Are you?
No, I don't.
So,
I'm just saying how many graduated. I mean, I'm just thinking.
But do we
Right.
have any numbers on what percentage that is? I mean, if there was only 50,
No,
and
it
40
wasn't.
grad-
It wasn't.
I know,
50.
that's what I'm saying. Do you have any numbers that we could relate to? Yes, Jen?
I have some numbers, so out of the 420 graduates, if we had equal representation of all our populations, and African Americans are approximately 28% now of Annapolis High, we would have had 58 Black male graduates.
Mhm.
That we only had 25 or 30 or however many were counted. That's the,
I mean, when I go down
Roughly
into
one number.
Robinwood, I see at least 50 of them standing on the corner out in the area. So, and
Yeah.
half of them are not in school. So,
So
it's-
was it 28 Black males that graduated, or was it 40?
It wasn't 40. I know that because I pretty much counted. But I think it was maybe between 28 and 30 at the most. The population is shrinking. I don't know where. I had a neighbor of mine that live here in my community. And I asked her, I said, what was her name? Mia. I said, I never saw you at Annapolis High School. Why didn't you come to the high school? So she said, well, they sent her to Mary Moss. She went there a year and then she just stopped going and no one ever came to look for her or anything. And we're losing a lot of students by them probably dropping out at age 16 and no one seems to count them in the numbers or anything. They're dispersed in Evening High School or Mary Moss or the Phoenix or wherever, but they're not at Annapolis High School. And then a lot of them just drop out.
Right.
And then the students who are coming, and the African American students who are coming to Annapolis High School, a lot of them are not from Annapolis. They're coming, in the PVA program or maybe the IB or something like that, but they're not the Annapolis students.
Yeah, I mean, Annapolis probably draws a more diverse, in terms of diversity of around the county, student body than almost any other high schools. I think like it's from like 14 of the middle schools in the county are represented in Annapolis High student body. So it's complicated to really dig down into those numbers and really understand who's actually coming from our community and who isn't. Now, also, it may be some of our students go to other programs elsewhere, but nonetheless, that does remain the case that we have a lot of our graduates coming from, and Annapolis High is I believe the registration went up during the pandemic at Annapolis High, and we're looking at about 2,200 next year. So.
Yeah, the largest population, I think, is the Hispanic population now.
Yeah.
Yes.
And in the African Americans are the lowest numbers.
Well, and that's shifting in Annapolis as well. I mean, the African American population is going down and the Hispanic population is going up. So
and believe me, that's all by design, but I'm not going to get into that, but that's all by design.
Okay, next. I wanted to bring up new business before we completely finish. I didn't get a chance to.
Any other questions or comments for Dr. Tobin?
I don't want to belabor the point, but I do think that this is something that we need to, we've talked about it a billion times, but promoting kids from 5th that aren't ready for 6th and promoting kids from 8th that aren't ready for 9th. I know personally someone who was promoted and I don't understand how, and it's not going to be beneficial for her or anyone or him or them or anyone to get promoted from 8th grade if you're not ready for 9th grade, and that just creates problems. And it and to be honest, it doesn't even doesn't matter what race or gender they are, though it's certainly a problem. It's a bigger problem with certain groups than others, but it's something that we really need to, and it affects our cluster and our kids more than anyone else. So I hear us talk about it, but I don't hear it talked about on the Board of Ed. I don't hear it talked about anywhere else. And I think we talk about the achievement and the opportunity gap. I mean,
all the time.
That's critical.
And so I think that is something that we just need to figure out what can be done and how we can assist with that.
Thank you, Dr. Tobin, as always, for joining in these meetings. Moving back to new business, Janet, you had an update for Annapolis High PTA.
Yes, thank you, India. I just wanted to introduce, and I'm going to follow this up with an email to you all so that you have the names and contact information for the new officers we elected in for the Annapolis High PTSA. So our new president next year is going to be Mary Grace Gallagher, who is on her 3rd child through Annapolis High. So she is a veteran parent there and has seen a bunch, with a phenomenal supporting team of her executive office. We have Diana Love as vice president, who has helped run many things, among them the West Annapolis Pop-Up Pantry and many, many other organizations. Relatively new to Annapolis family, Sarah Hochter is the secretary, and she has graphics arts and marketing skills as a consultant there. So she was going to take things and turn them into a more graphically visible and attractive way to communicate with our families. And Andrea Jones is going to be our treasurer, who has Annapolis High and Annapolis Middle kids. So we are very lucky that Laura and I and others begged, pleaded, and dragged people into the elections. But we're very thankful that this team is going to continue the good work for Annapolis High. So please reach out to them, include them, keep them looped into what's going on in Annapolis Education Commission, get input from them, because it really is important what's happening in Annapolis High for the future of all our Panthers.
And can you ask them to keep me on the list for the PTSA meetings and so forth?
Yes.
You can't get away that easily.
Well, I figure they might, Thank you.
Definitely. Yeah. And so if I could ask, like as a follow-up email circulation, if I'd love it if other PTAs provided their new officers and their contact information to the commission so that we know who to coordinate with, who to connect with. I mean, Jess has done an amazing job on her own, and with you, India, like connecting the PTA people throughout the cluster. And I think that's been so valuable that we need to continue.
Talked about possibly doing a cluster PTA, and maybe that should be another committee that we might want to consider adding for this year, is a committee that basically just would connect with all the PTAs in the area, because for most of us, we don't know, like the issues like the meals, for example, at Eastport, we would not know that, except that we have Jess, who is, in the PTA, connected with the PTA there and knows the specific needs of those students. So it really helps to have the direct connections, because a lot of times we don't know what's going on at Mills Parole, because I've never had a kid there, so I'm not connected there, so I don't know what's going on there. And so each one of those, I think, the more we can connect with PTAs, the more we can find out what the specific needs are, and we know how we can best to help advocate and help them.
Well, also, if I could say that would be very valuable for me, because I sort of catch can see that there are PTA meetings. Sometimes specific people get in touch with me. I try to always go to the Annapolis one because I usually can work that in my schedule, and others as needed. But it would be great if there was such a committee, and if they wanted to meet with me, I'd be happy to meet with them. I mean, they don't have to if they don't want to, but it's just sort of a central way to connect with a lot of folks who, as you said, have a lot of stuff going on that it's hard to keep track of sometimes. So
I will follow up with the other PTA presidents to get that information. Laura, you had an update on supplies.
All right, I have two things. Just to circle back to transportation and school start times for a minute, since Dr. Tobin's here now. As I said earlier, one of the things that concerned me a little bit when I attended for the Prismatic report was that there definitely was an emphasis on maintaining the cost as sort of the driving goal of the Prismatic team, was to maintain costs. And the way that they were doing that, one of the things was saying, well, we may have to make some bus stops a longer walking distance, or we may have to increase walking radiuses. Exactly all the issues that we have, using more consolidated bus stops, which, as we've talked about here ad nauseum, makes all of our wonderful magnet programs inaccessible to families that don't have transportation to get to a consolidated bus stop. So one of the things that I think that we're concerned about, and that, I know Joanna's, it's already on her radar, but making sure that as we're moving forward with the goal of changing school start times, that we're not also making school even more. We've talked about it as being the transportation as being a significant contributor to the opportunity gap, that it's not becoming a greater obstacle here instead of helping to solve some of the problems. The August 18th, there is the only one meeting, and that's, I think, the August 18th meeting, Joanna, is when you're going to get the update from Prismatic. Okay. So if we can stay in that loop with you, and anything that we can do to continue to advocate specifically for our students who, many of the families who do not have private transportation. And so without the issue to, things like after school programs are inaccessible to them. Things like magnet programs become inaccessible. An awful lot of the things that we're doing at our schools are not accessible usually to the students that would most benefit from participating in those programs. So
yeah, I during that meeting, I raised the question of walking radii, specifically in the Annapolis area, taking into account just what the route is, right? That it's not just a distance issue, it's what children are being expected to walk through or across or whatever. And then also I very specifically brought up the activity bus issue and to what extent we were going to, and she's aware of that. So then she being the Prismatic person, but this, first piece was what we got. Second piece is putting more sort of actual numbers to it, and then we get that update, and then we go forward with that. So it's a multi-step process, and everybody here knows that I've advocated for getting healthier start times for a long time, but I also want to see that we get it right, so that we don't defeat the purposes of health and equity that we're trying to actually meet in the name of cost. So, those are all things kind of TBD that are going to have to be hammered out as more and more information comes in, and we sort of see what we have to work with. So
you missed the earlier part of the meeting, but there was some concern that we all kind of felt was that some of the members of the board were very new to this conversation and wanted to take a step back and think about it again. And I know, I've been feeling like we filled out surveys for years about this. And so even though I understand that some of the board members are new and have young children and have no idea that this is really an issue, but for those of us that have been, speaking in front of the board, of various boards for 15, 20, 30 years now, making sure that we continue to move forward with that is so important. So thank you for all of your efforts on that.
That's our hope. On the other hand, it is, it's a board, right? So we got to get everybody. But yes, that's the plan. So,
but India did bring up the point that you would have to make a whole motion to change if you're not going to make changes by the beginning of second semester, because that's what the board has motioned. So although some members would like to push it out for much longer and continue discussing it, that's not.
No, we would have to actively decide to make a motion that supersedes the motion we made, if that's the case. So as it now stands, the will of the board on record is that was the motion. So there will have to be a whole lot, should that occur, there will have to be a whole long discussion, and we are good at having long discussions. But yeah, no, that's what the record is right now. So we would have to make an active decision by a majority of the board to supersede that. So.
Great. Thank you so much for that. We appreciate, I know you personally have been advocating for this for years as well. So thank you. With regard to school supplies, I was in Giant yesterday, and when I was checking out, they were giving away free large bottles of hand sanitizer and sanitizing wipes, because now everybody's got such a huge stockpile of them, they don't need them anymore. So I contacted the manager there this morning, and he went and contacted the district manager, and they said, yes, they have have, probably a lot. He says they have a large quantity of things in their warehouse, and they would be happy to donate them to our schools because, every year on the school supply list, they want, sanitizing wipes, hand sanitizer things. And of course, for all of our Title I schools, those supply lists get pretty pricey. I mean, I know I've dropped, when I had 2 kids that I was shopping at Target for, those were some big Target runs. And so if we can get those things donated so that, I know a lot of times our teachers end up buying them out of their own pocket. I suspect, especially going into the school year, none of our elementary school and only some of our middle school students will have been vaccinated. So there may still be mask requirements in place. We'll definitely be encouraging good hygiene. They usually encourage in the elementary schools, but even more forcefully than usual. So I think anything like that we can get donated. I noticed, like when I was in CVS, for example, they've got huge displays of masks, particularly child-sized masks. I'm guessing that our elementary school kids will probably still have mask requirements because they won't be vaccinated for this fall. So I'm going to start contacting this, and if anybody else would like to join me on that and contact, any of the local stores in this area and say, look, if you've got these sitting around in your warehouse and you're trying to unload them, we can give you a great place that you can donate them so they can help out our students. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Anybody who's interested, shoot me an email and we'll coordinate lists. So thank you.
Laura, where did you say you saw the hand sanitizer?
The Giant on by me down by Quiet Waters. I was shopping yesterday, and at the end, like, oh, do you want a free giant bottle of hand sanitizer? And I was like, yeah, sure. And then they said, and how about some wipes? And then I thought, wait a minute, if they're just giving these away, So, we use those even in a non-COVID year. All of our elementary schools go through ridiculous quantities of hand sanitizer and sanitizing wipes. So if we can get any of that donated, to help relieve the burden on our Title I schools so that they're not having to spend a ton of money on those things and they can spend them on, other supplies that might benefit, more directly benefit students then.
Is there any other new business?
I'd just like to get people to continue to care about like the Great Schools rating or the Maryland State rating that we have through the State Department of Education that has some structural biases that rate our schools low. So if our parents don't fill out the excused absence form, then we are rated low. Even if the kid was legitimately sick, we are rated low for our chronic absenteeism or other scores. Differences between our magnet IB program kids and regular kids in achievement scores. So I would just please encourage people to continue that because Jess, India, me, Laura cannot possibly keep responding to every single person who moves into this area saying, tell me where the best schools are, and them saying, well, Annapolis is rated 3 out of 10. So please continue to work on that issue. As things broke out in Loudoun County today, I am more proud than ever that my kids went to Annapolis High and went through the Annapolis cluster and have that benefit in their lives. Thank you.
So Mr. Mosier and I have been in contact with it. I've seen all his email traffic with Great Schools trying to get some traction with them and some information about sort of when, how can we update, get, first of all, accurate information, and secondly of all, there was a meeting a while back that Delegate Jones was on here, and she and I talked about it then, and we talked about it again later. I think there may be, it may be most effective, quite frankly, to begin to get at kind of how Great Schools can operate the way it does, because it wields a lot of power, quite frankly, and we have almost no ability, a school system, to control, to ask even for actual information that really does reflect our schools. And that seems to me a problem. I mean, potentially, could be addressed possibly from legislation or something that requires some sort of accountability, quite frankly. I mean, it's a bit like some of the Yelp stuff that's gone on in the past and so on, because this has a profound impact. There's almost no way of getting actual information. So I am aware of it. ACPS is aware of it. Delegate Jones is aware of it. We've had at least one conversation about it. We're going to keep at it and see if we can come up with something that will address this.
Great, thank you. And if we can continue to look at the way that the MSDE state system ranks their 5-star rating and remove biases from that rating.
I've had a number of conversations about that. I'm sure you're all aware there's a new superintendent, a new state superintendent coming in. And obviously we'll see. But in the press I've read, and this is just what's in the press, obviously I've never met him, I don't know. One of the things he did in, I believe, both the San Antonio and the Dallas districts, but I know I'm more certain that at least it happened in San Antonio, was really increase the battery of metrics that were used to determine student need. So in other words, he wasn't just working off the farm's data, which is one very important metric, but a whole host of others, and seems to have had pretty good success through that in really having the schools know in a more detailed, granular way. I mean, not that students don't know who their students are, but from the system, a more granular. Ms. Oakes has a disco going on behind her. I think I know who's behind that. It had a real effect in increasing the support for all the schools in the system, and that is a system that has some high concentrations of poverty, is highly diverse, all sorts of things. So I'm hopeful that that is something he kind of has as one of the things he's noted for, because I do think it's personally long past time that report card really be reimagined in a way that doesn't have these sort of systemic barriers to certain schools succeeding and certain schools not on that scale. And we've talked about this here before. I mean, just at the very least, comparing schools that have similar demographics, which they don't do, and there's no way to do. And we know the impact of that. So, there's a whole host of issues that I think needs to be addressed. And I've talked to some other folks in various elected positions about this, because I think it's really, so I'm trying.
Thank you so much. And if I could just add, India, if it's possible for us to obtain the school improvement plans from each school in our cluster, for us to be able to look at either at the August or September meeting whenever they have them available. I would like to know, okay, what are the 3 priority items that Annapolis High is working on? And if it is absenteeism, then let's help them get the word out, do whatever actions that they're trying to target. And if we knew that for each of the schools in our cluster, we could perhaps be more effective in spreading the word.
I just want to point out
Okay.
too, for just real quick, Hillary, for the city as well, this issue is really important. It's also right, because this city, I mean, this, directly affects home values and home desirability, and which then affects the school system. It's this constant cycle of things. So that might also be something that the city and the school system can work together on to try to make this change with with great schools and everything. And, you know, perhaps having not only a school system, but also a mayor, governmental organization saying, look, this is negatively impacting our city and our communities. I think that's important.
Right, and our tax base.
Anything else anyone wants to share before we close for the night?
I would just like to publicly say thank you to all of our teachers and staff and administrators and lunch staff, cafeteria staff, and everybody else in the school system for getting through, and I hate the word because it's unprecedented, but unprecedented. I mean, it is an unprecedented and insane year. So I'd like to make a motion. The Annapolis Education Commission thanks all AACPS employees for everything they did to bring our students through this year safely and you know, academically progress. And I would like to make a motion that the Annapolis Education Commission would like to thank all AACPS staff for everything they did to support our students during the 2020 to 2021 school year and through the pandemic. That's what I'd like.
I'll second the motion.
And third.
All in favor?
Raise your
Aye.
hand, Jason.
Looks like it passed.
Thank you all. Our staff can't be, all of our staff, everyone, teachers, administrators, every staff member, everyone can't be thanked enough. The work has been superhuman, so thank you.
Jess, can you email that to me so I can be sure to get it correct in the minutes?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, if there is no objection, I am adjourning the June 23rd, 2021 meeting of the Annapolis Education Commission. Thanks everyone. Enjoy the next 8 weeks of summer.